enough just to look at the leaves, but you have to lift the leaves up. And when you do, you realize that we are talking about Fibonacci, straight given in the nature, as much as the pleasure of discovering, for example, the difference between push and pull. And it's so clear now that if we do understand the difference between push and pull, then you have a takeoff. Either your body or a 10 tons stone, you know. And so it's a culture. We're preparing for something so big. It's a radical change, and this radical change has combined a galactic attitude as much as a culture that everybody can understand to some degree, and then from there on try to climb in consciousness as much as possible and as fast as possible, because this technology are covering the whole life. So it's a culture.
Mm-hmm.
That is the most important things I really have to share, because I really get to understand how people are in this in this plasma family. I understand their questions. I understand the answers, and I think there is a very particular reason how come that I understand. I remember word by word from the beginning when Mr. Keshe was starting to speak. Every word he said. And I always had a kind of a good memory, but to that extent. And I was thinking, well, I don't think it has much to do with Mr. Keshe as a person, but the information that he's giving. Like, if you want to get it straight, then listen up, pay attention to what he's saying. So if you get the information, then you have the choice to share or not to share. And in this case, it seems to me that if you don't share, if you choose not to share, you're going to be ejected by yourself, because we won't. And that's not part of this culture to inject people. They inject themselves, and if they come back, what will they see? You know, well, open arms and any kind of forgiveness, because my God, it's hard to understand sometimes, and it's a big challenge. But that's what we want, a big challenge, and so I really call what Douglas found out a great victory among many other expected victories. For example, when Mr. Keshe was saying that a cancer patient are going into the MHU and 3 minutes after, he doesn't have cancer anymore. That's the goal. That's exactly what we want. But in which other technological sector is giving themselves that kind of promises? So you have a winner, and it's coming through the Keshe Foundation. You know, in the 70s, when the computers, of course, already then it was severely back engineered. These engineers were giving more promises that they could actually keep, and that only means that Mr. Keshe's ways are already up to date. Because if you can't find out things on your own, then why not ask questions? And when you do ask questions, you get the answers. If it's combined with any kind of shape and form into this technology.
Tobor?
Yeah.
No, I made a mistake. It wasn't CH3. It was copper oxide.
Yes.
And I made a mistake. I thought it was yeah. It's copper oxide and calcium is good for the psoriasis. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Copper oxide.
would you please repeat it again? Because Monique is much more on that field.
Copper oxide. I got it. Copper
Yeah,
oxide.
copper. The liquid plasma of copper oxide with calcium.
The liquid plasma of calcium.
Yes. And the liquid plasma of copper oxide GAN. Sorry, sometimes I get those confused.
There's a question in the chat about how to apply that.
Like he was showing, it's like a spray bottle. You can just put it on your hands and put it on the psoriasis, or you can use like a mister.
This spray is something that I asked particularly from Monique. It's when you look at it, instead of using a cheap spray, it creates a mist like this. You hardly see it, but when you put it, you can see it, but it's a mist instead of a broad shower. And I've been waiting for this for 1.5 months, because when you guys surely remember that when Mr. Keshe was presenting sour soap fruit, it's typical Mr. Keshe, and that's one of the reasons why the guy is so lovable. It's that he was saying to you, Rick, if you remember, he said, "Shall we call it a day then? And let's pack up and go home, you know." And then during the Togo presentation, it was quite long and very many details. And then Mr. Keshe was saying, "Go back, from this fruit and that fruit," you know. And he ended up in the fields of soursop fruit. And if you paid attention, 3 hours later, Mr. Keshe was still there, only talking about soap fruit. Oh, come on, that's love. That's passion. And I think the 3 hours went away so fast for Mr. Keshe that he didn't realize himself. And the way he was putting into a huge puzzle the secrets in soursop fruit is so important information, because the reason why it wasn't really, you know, when you went through the passage of all the different presentations for Togo, soursop fruit was only one of them. And the reason why it was mentioned was superficially that it was used for cancer purposes, to treat cancer. So it was just one of the fruits that was mentioned. But when you realize what this fruit contains, and you can use those skills consciously, then in the end of the day, it doesn't have much to do with the fruit anymore, especially not when you transform it to liquid plasma. And it's the same thing when pH equilibrium or balance, it's just one of the measure sticks, because we do have hot and cold and sour and sweet and so on. It's as these are very important details as well.
In the different title for it would be graviola fruit or soursop fruit. Mm-hmm.
You know, very often you only hear about the orange that one vitamin, you know, and it's so unfair to the fruit.
Can you comment? Can you comment on atomization? You know, where you spray the liquid into the air so it atomizes. I tried to use a humidifier, and I didn't get very good results. I don't know if it's because it heats the water and creates a steam, or
That's
but the sprayer worked a lot better.
That's an excellent question. The thing is that when you push the spray and it lands on the nanomaterial, you realize that the vortex from the field, from the nano, either if it's a health pen, health battery, or a coil, that's the conscious use of the nanomaterial itself. But when you spray these different liquid plasmas on it, the water molecules have a charge, a particularly conscious charge. And this charge has something very seriously to do with the vacuum that we're living in, loosely called oxygen. You know, it's loosely because what do you have in your oxygen? What are you breathing in and out? That's more than just oxygen. It's a difference between clear, pure air from air molecules and some poison from a big city. And when we're using the different liquid plasma for health purposes, you're actually asking the universe from its vortex to gather more of it. And the universe is very, when I'm talking about the universe, I'm talking about the vacuum. The vacuum is very, very intelligent. It knows the difference. And so when the activation of the fields are, there is no limit to it. And so when you put the different charges, why not aim for very small layers? The eyes won't see it. Only when you spray it carefully, it could be a goal in itself that it's not starting to drip, because that only means an overdose. The mist is going to help you to put more and more conscious layers on the coil, creating more and more combinations and collaboration between you and the vacuum. Because when you look at the vacuum, and you can see the difference between oxygen and nitrogen, and the hydrogen, then that's just 3 of the particles that you have in the oxygen. And it's very important to realize that nitrogen is not coming from the dirt and climbs its way up to the CO2 level. It's the opposite. Nitrogen is raining down from the sky. It doesn't climb. But so does CO2. And the CO2 molecules, the air molecules, has a natural way to clean itself if ever it carries pollution. But the way it's doing it is not necessary from one part of a country to another, but rather from one traveling from the North Pole to the South Pole. So it's a huge makeup to travel with the air molecules. This is, of course, extremely important for us, because in this plasma technology, we are creating CO2. And so if you look at how you made it, calling it GANS, then you're aiming for CO2 using a gas that produces a stuff that the eye can see. But it doesn't mean that the eye can see the field as well. It only takes care of the result in the fruit or in the soup. But after a while, you get to feel the field, and when it's clearing up some confusion on a photon level, it means that you can start to understand the gamma waves, the delta waves, and all the different photons that are a mixture in our vacuum. So that's actually what's going on when you put, for example, you can add electromagnetic energy into the superconductors or the coils, and you realize that it's activating the vacuum. And how does it do this? Well, it's the vortex spinning. The vortex is gathering more and more, so the field gets stronger and stronger. So that must have been what Mr. Keshe meant when the MHU is going to put cancer people in balance in 3 minutes. It's just a question of time before the MHU is so strong that the 3 minutes is going to be a reality. And so you have to kind of keep up your good work until then, and not be some disbeliever just because you don't understand the science of it. Because people are, many people are going in and out of Keshe Foundation just because they kind of build a unit and they just blow it away, saying it doesn't work. But if you're being kind to yourself and using patience, you will see that Mr. Keshe's technology is correct. But you have to help. You have to contribute to see what we can do together. And it's quite amazing to see that how many people, for any kind of reason, who choose consciously not to be in this foundation, because that's madness to me. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
A lot of what you explained maybe explains some of the data that I collected during a test. I have an older vehicle. In the United States, we have to get smog tests on our vehicles every 2 years for them to be allowed on the road. It's called a smog check. And prior to doing this on an older vehicle, I started adding, I took powdered zinc oxide GaNs, I mixed it with gasoline, I was doing some flame testing, trying to see if it was soluble, which it's not. It's not soluble. And so I started adding this liquid. When it was mixed with gasoline, I used that liquid and I put it in the gas tank for a couple of months, just a small amount. And then when I took it to the smog check, the numbers came back as all zeros. There was no hydrocarbons, there was no NOx output, it was nothing. And I was like, the way it works here is it's just a pass or fail. You either pass or fail. They don't look at the data because there's too many cars to do. They just look to see if it passed or failed. But I looked at the numbers and they were basically zero because the machine can't go to zero. It's like they didn't even put the probe in the exhaust pipe to test it, but it passed. So that kind of explains how it interacts.
I can explain. Of course, that's just going to be my contribution, my explanation. It's the fact that when you're looking at all the ganses, whatever kind of GaNs you make, you realize that they all have a goal, and it's to make their brothers and sisters in balance. Whatever you can think of, it's about balance. So, for example, when you put liquid plasma in your petrol, in your gas, it actually means that from now on, the gas is going to be in balance. And the way plasma energy is understanding balance hardly have nothing to do with calculated outcome, because if you compare it to vaporizing molecules and air molecules, you realize at some stage it used to be water. So you're going from water to gas, and from gas to air. And this is the procedure of all the gases, depending on what you want to produce. And so if you put the liquid plasma into the tank, it's going to do many things, much more than just creating, after a while, the best gas you can have in your tank. That's not the only thing it's doing. It's also preparing the difference between the painted side of the car and the rust. So it's clear that the charge from the liquid plasma has many other secrets that it can do for us. And the balance, very, very often people think that balance is a neutral state, which is not far from the truth. It's just that when we're using the word natural, then we can understand better than neutral or zero, because natural state means that there has never been any decay on this planet, but it has been a misuse of all kinds. When you put the oil on a place on a planet that is not supposed to be, then we call it decay. Or if we're creating plastic from the silicon, and now we have too much plastic, we don't know where to put it, it's decay. But nature doesn't look at this as decay. It only takes the consequences from the misuse in the now. So when we get a bit clever on when we find the balance, what we need and what we don't need, then you see it's not only physical, it's also mental. Usually it's the other way around, first mental and then physical. And that's going to create a new human being altogether, having the attitude of understanding things much better, rather than aiming for luck and coincidences, random happenings, so you don't have to take the responsibility for further views. And the balance is equal to all kinds of sides of plasma technology. As we get to follow all the different procedures, there is more balance and more sense to a third set of teeth, rather than being ignorant and don't brush your teeth. And so let's say that you're losing your teeth for illness, like Pirea or something, and you realize that it doesn't have to be. So you can start working with a greater understanding of the cells and the molecules. What kind of cells does the plants have, and what kind of cells are the animals? And so already in this technology, we have more and more doctors that are becoming veterinarians, just because you don't have to know everybody's illnesses, because the technology itself allows a procedure of healing without knowing. And sooner or later, through the gift of balance, you are going to see for yourself why you picked up a unbalanced state in the first place. And when you see this, you will call it experience, you know. So there is no right and wrong in this technology. It's only either it's working or it's not working. And so you have to, and I guess that's the reason why people are in and out. I've seen how people start to talk when they make their first decision that this is a sect. They all believe in stuffs that are not real and so on, and then they try to try to imitate Mr. Keshe, any shape or form, and it's 2 and 3 of them, or you know, and it's like understandable, but it's a bit short-minded. That's my point of view on it.
Going back to the car application, Vernie wrote in the chat, one time when emissions read 0, it were not accepted. It happens in the Philippines and in New York that the testing center did not accept it, that one should find a way for the vehicle to have a non-zero reading were accepted. And so
that's understandable, because when Monique and me were
just to clarify real quick, they weren't the numbers that the numbers weren't 0. It was I believe the hydrocarbons were 0.3, so it was still above 0, and the NOx was 1. And I just understood that the machine couldn't read 0. That's probably why it was returned at the most minimal calibration number. So it wasn't 0. In fact, it was above 0.
It's a miracle.
1 point or so maybe that's the reason why it passed, because my intention was to pass the smog test. But
you know, Monique and me went to a place where we, before knowing the plasma technology, we went to a place, and we always knew that you, in order to get forth and tout retour, Monique, tout retour. Well, we went there and got back again.
Back and forth.
Huh?
Back and forth.
Back and forth. Sorry. We knew that we have to fill up a full tank, and that happened. We've been there so often that we always count on 1 full tank. But Monique put
a small jar of jam quantity. So it's 150 milliliters.
Yeah, 150 milliliters of zinc-based plasma.
Zinc, yeah.
And liquid plasma, you know. And we got back from that point laughing in the car, because we had used 3/4 of the tank. And if you want to understand this, it's going to be a challenge, because we have reason on one side, where you want to understand as much as possible using logic, but there is no logic in the chemical order. You have to add the alchemic part as well. So you realize that you can use much more than just the gas as a charge in the motor. And from a logical point of view, you would say that you just add water molecules to the tank, and that's going to be very bad for the motor. Usually it is. It's going to burn out your motor, heat it up, and that's not what it's doing. It's putting every detail into balance, just a question of time, because it's, you know, people have a hard time to understand that when you're pouring in the charge, then what about the vacuum between the gas and the air in the tank? That's going to be quality air as well. So after a while, when you travel, when you don't even are needed to put liquid plasma in there. And you open the tank and you're going to see the tank is empty. But we've been there already many times in plasma technology, that there is no empty space. It just doesn't exist. And so that's when we can start to be clever, where the rest of the world would call it just a miracle, like walking on the water. But it's technology, special technology from the Keshe Foundation. You know, we kind of get to understand it more and more in a much better way than other schools.
Well, that was my thinking, and that's why I guess I should also add that I put everything that I put was from a powdered base, so I completely dried everything out, so there was no water, and then I mixed it with the gasoline. But I wanted to also say that I added a little bit of CH3 powder to the radiator cooling system and a little bit of copper oxide to the engine oil, trying to create the three conditions within the vehicle, and the vehicles, for whatever reason, felt lighter.
Excellent.
Like the suspension,
What?
a 20-year-old vehicle now had like a brand new suspension, and it went over the bumps, and the people inside of it, like the plasma bubble, felt so much at ease.
Okay, what did you put where?
Well, wait a minute. Before you repeat this, I have to tell that if you want this to work, you have to do, because this is beautiful to your sharing there. Where every time Monique, Monique is going to tell the procedure, because it's not, you just don't pour a liquid plasma like that. It's a procedure.
Hi. What I do is, you know, those jars which are big like this of jam.
Mason jar.
Yes.
Mason jar?
Just the normal jars, but the small quantity on the market, when they cannot sell you less than that, except for the hotel ones. Okay, not the hotel ones, but those jars which are like this. Okay, I fill it up with the zinc plasma liquid. But what I do is I wait until my tank is really, really well into the reserve tank. Then when I arrive at the pump, I just put all my liquid plasma, and then I fill up my tank half.
Oh, because as mechanics, we never wanted to put water in our gas tank. You know, that's why I thought that I mixed the gasoline with the dried powder would be effective.
That's the proof that it is not water. That's the liquid plasma must be transforming the water within itself, and as it gets into contact with the petrol.
No, I understand that now, but at the time I didn't. You know.
Okay.
Thank you.
But I have absolutely no problem with use. I've been doing it because we got two cars, one which is on diesel and one which is on normal, regular, normal petrol, 95 octane. And we do that in both of them and no problem whatsoever. But what I want to know is what you do, what's the other things I've got to write down.
So the radiator, right?
Yes.
The radiator, the cooling system.
Yeah.
I add CH3 to that because it's an iron-based
Yes.
plasma GANs. And then for the engine oil, I add copper oxide, a copper-based.
Okay, how much?
Just a small. I just added, you know, a very small
Like
amount
this?
of powder, and then
Powder. I don't have any. See, Torbjörn has some powders. Like maybe I can steal some powders from Torbjörn.
And so with the oil, I just took a little, a small amount, and mixed it up with some oil, and then I poured it into the engine. The same. So with the radiator, I just put it in some distilled water because I wanted to start out with the purest GANs, and then mix it with whatever I was going to do. I didn't want, at the time, I didn't want water involved in the process.
And it's like a spoonful of it, of this powder?
I would say a couple milligrams.
Okay.
A couple milligrams. Just for testing. You know, I didn't want to overdo it.
Okay. I'm on it. Thank you very much.
So thank you for sharing. I appreciate it.
Torbjörn is taking over again.
Well, I guess what I'm doing now is going to be very important in the coming days. Since Rick was telling that Mr. Kesh is giving out the blueprint this afternoon, this is how I'm making the batteries. We call it the BAT caps. BAT is short for batteries, and caps is capacitors, so that everybody knows. And so this is kind of a needle, and it's open. It looks like this only because it's easier to nanocoat the whole wires when you take them, when you kind of unwire them, and then this is a plastic from another wire. It's just that the thickness fits, so I don't have to buy all the socks and burn them or heat them up in order to have a new plastic structures around. This is cheaper, faster, and better, you know. And so what I'm doing is that I prepare the GaNs mixture with a small, really small amount of lead GaNs, but then I actually used 2 different irons. I'm creating more iron now. Coming from this is turning out to be completely orange, and this one is darker brown. These are iron, and then the copper and the zinc. And I'm of course making more zinc here. You see the level of zinc is going to fill up this one nicely. And
Tobor,
this is gold and this is silver. Yes.
what do you feel by adding air to the process improves? Does it just pop the popcorn, so to speak?
Did you say air?
Yeah, like a air bubbler. If you add an air bubbler to the GaNs making process.
Oh, that's a good question. Let me explain. When you realize the difference between air molecules and water molecules, we can actually put those 2 combinations together. When Douglas is saying that when he's using earth, it's not like if there is a equal way to treat electricity, and it's the same trick to understand that when you're making this combination, creating iron GaNs, for example, the classical way by a nanocoated plate and connected to the iron, then you realize that it's not an electric procedure where you plug plus to minus or plus and minus to the earth. This is related to the air molecules forcing the water molecules to dance. So it's a circle. It's a everlasting circle until you finished your GaNs process. So you kind of force the air molecules to work your way through the water molecules, and this is a natural procedure. And there is hardly any you know, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen as the basics of the air that is floating around in the soup, helping for all the procedure that is needed to realize when you're finished your, because even if you put air bubbles into it, you have to look carefully at the results. So the result is when you put bubbles into it, it only depends on if it gives you more GANs, and even if it does, it's not necessarily quality GANs. If you compare the procedure over and over again, and you realize that you can fill this up if you only make zinc GANs, you can use time and realize that you have a relationship with all the gases that you're producing. But if you're putting air bubbles into it, you kind of don't want to touch it because it's working on its own. But at the same time, the natural procedure is not to put any kind of motor or unnatural way to treat the molecules. So of course, bubble can be natural, but then again, would you dare to take the risk? It's the same thing with if you put a battery to help the water molecules to work for you. The reason why, when putting batteries into it, like let's say 1.5 voltage, the reason why the molecules in the GANS process have a tendency to get like small flakes that you can't open again, it means that the charge is misunderstood from the water molecules. So the water molecule is going to survive, and the GANS is going to survive, and they're going to separate, and it's not going to be a fluffy, sky-like result. On the contrary, it's actually GANS that you can throw away because the charge has become magnetic in nature, in its own nature, which is pretty much the same chaotic situation, while not understanding how to nanocoat either, because the nano has a charge as well. And there's a particular charge from the nano that we want to have. So that's the link between both of them as a risk. Very often those mistakes are happening when you feel that you're in a hurry. And so it's a good point not to be in a hurry when it comes to plasma technology, because you're going to deliver anyway. This is not depending on one day. Very often, especially in the GANS production, you have to be patient. It's a vertigo that means a lot if you want to have results.
Can you speak about the contribution of the CH bond from the plastic that the tub adds to the overall process?
Oh, please, say again.
Can you speak about the plastic of the tub when you make your GANs, how it contributes
Yes,
to the CH bond?
Yeah. Twice or three times.
We couldn't hear you. Your microphone was.
Sorry.
Yeah, you had to hand over the mic.
Is it better now?
Yeah.
Yeah. When Mr. Kesh was saying 3 times that you can put your plates outside your container, but if you do, make sure that the plastic is correct. So it's not a question of thin plastic or thick plastic. It's the question of plastic itself. And the silicon, we're not using the silicon. Like, for example, creating glue. We're using the skill from the silicon, the properties from the silicon, as much as the gas procedure going on between the salt water and the nanomaterial. And the fields, when it comes to the recognition between the natural state of silicon from the very procedure of making the GaNs material itself, that's another usage of a silicon. But when you put it into salt water, the salt water's natural state of silicon is going to play with the container made of plastic that has the skill of the properties of silicon as well. So it's going to be like a mirror. Silicon in a physical state and silicon in a non-physical state, more like photons. So this is important for further understandings, because the subatomic particles in any kind of GaNs are creating crystals. And during the process where the GaNs are becoming crystals, you're going to wait for 1,000 years for GaNs to become crystals. So when you empty your GaNs, then the air, the oxygen can start to play with the rest of the GaNs, and that's going to create a mountain of new GaNs coming from crystals. They look like crystals, and this is what the property of GaNs has common with the nanomaterial itself, because the nanomaterial are either creating gold as an outcome or coal as an outcome, or monatomic particles. But of course, in this case, the reason why monatomic particles are called gold, monatomic gold, is because it has the same value. So it's easy to create gold of monatomic particles if you want to make gold. But it's also very useful for health purposes or traveling from one dimension to another. That's very often, what's most mentioned when it comes to monatomic particles, that it has the skill to go so fast from an atom state to a subatomic state and then disappear into another dimension. And in quantum physics, the statements has been where did it go and what happened to it? Just because it's a door between two dimensions. So when the subatomic, when the atoms are coming back to show you whatever disappeared, if it's a glass of water or anything else, then it was always through the passage between atom to a subatom, and why not monoatomic structure? But that's not the only way, because that's the skill that you can get from all kinds of photons. And that's the whole purpose of photons, to see that now we can start to understand the difference between energy and matter. So everything that has a matter state, most of what I know of starts with electrons, from the passage from photons to electrons. And then you can see the result in atomic matter that everything is built upon. And so, of course, where does the decay disappear? It's not that it's disappearing, it's transforming to subatomic particles, and then it finds its way back home. So Mother Earth is taking back what she lost, and that's not only petrol. It's all kind of decay. Mother Earth is taking it back and put it back into order. But especially in plasma technology, we get to help ourselves to help the planet. Because even if we don't understand subatomic particles and what a whole spectrum of submatter, submatter only means that it's on its way to a kind of a transformation. And so, for example, ghost DNA is by nature photons, much more than electrons, because it's just the light from the photography's results. But that light is a natural state. So even if you lose a leg, the leg is still going to be there. And now we have a second word, phantom pain, you know. It's not a phantom. It's something that's there, belonging to the photon world, much more than to the physical world. And it's the same thing, how we're healing. It's not natural to kill cells, even if they are full of cancer. It's natural to put them in order, in balance, put them back and not kill. Kill is unnatural in the universe. Nobody's killing each other in the universe except for for some kids who doesn't get it.
So can you explain the process when you use a carbon rod as opposed to a nano-coated plate, how that creates?
Well, you know, let's say that the difference is in what you want, not the result itself, because the result is not going to stop to ask, what do you want? And carbon, it's very interesting to see the difference between carbon and crystals, because you kind of get it on your menu, that energy, everything has its basic shape and energy, and all the gases is just a question of geometry, much more than a physical soup, just because it's gas-based, coming from the property from the nano, salt water, and whatever mixture you have on the other side, kind of metal. And every time you make a gas, it's not going to do anything to you unless you add some consciousness to it. What do you want? And then the next question is, how much of what you decided to create do you want? And so when you allow the natural procedure to see that when you made a Magrav unit, you were actually imitating your body, because the body has physical atomic purpose as much as a photon purpose. And in this case, we are all about to transmute. So you better understand subatomic particles, because when the carbon-based human being is transformed to a light human being, that kind of light has a secret in the DNA. So that's why I was mentioning that you rather stop looking at the DNA as a screw mechanism, because it's not. It doesn't look like a screw. You rather take the habit to look at the DNA as a serpent with a head and a tail. And the whole goal of the DNA is that the head is biting the tail. So it's creating a circle. Because from the perspective, when we look up in the sky, it's going to be a dance, a circular dance. And that's when you get the relationship between clockwise and anti-clockwise. It's got any, the torsion. Torsion means a twist. And what kind of twist is that? You can understand it if you repeat clockwise and anti-clockwise. But that's an early definition, because it's not clockwise and anti-clockwise. It's a dance. And the reason why you better aim at the dance is because sometimes you will get to know what's in the vortex, and sometimes you will think of it as a mystery. Because even if you get to see the vortex from the field that you're creating, then how many vortexes are you aware about? So, for example, it was amazing to hear that Ali thought it was absolutely natural to talk about speed for every GANs, especially zinc, copper, and iron. The speed. So that's of course that's astrophysics, but did he mention light, the speed of light, or the speed of sound, or another kind of speed that we haven't found out yet, or doesn't have necessarily a familiar connection with? And if all the ganses, it's been clear now that the copper GANs they look like pentagons. But if you look clear at the pentagons, you find out that even if it's pentagons, none of them are repeating. So in nature, you even if it's snowing, not one snow particle is the same. So it's the same thing with this natural soup called GANs. That even if you are into geometry, isn't it typical that if you put GANs, copper GANs and zinc GANs, you get the third element. So you don't get a heptagon and a pentagon. You get the third one as well, always. And you can tear the energy out of it as much as the speed out of it, or healing purposes, the inflation from the molecules and the cells. So of course, the most exciting level is to see, for example, that if you use your consciousness with the understanding of amino acid, then you realize why Mr. Keshe were telling during the period where we were in Dubai that forget about stem cells. Just throw stem cells in the garbage, because when you approach stem cells, then you hardly get to know particular skills of the DNA found here and there from one organ to another. So it's not going to give you much. But if you take stem cells away and you put amino acid instead, then we can play with two different areas, one from the GANs and one from the natural organs. Now we can use ghost DNA and start to rebuild a new body, as much as which has nothing to do with cloning. We don't need to clone whatsoever, because it's a natural way of understanding the technology. I keep on talking.
Yeah, thank you too, Bjorn. Your endless knowledge. Wow.
Yes.
It helps, to get a different perspective on all of this. Different than different.
I had 5 hours yesterday with the Polish people, and they. I'm kind of creating pictures so that people can have a relationship with their own experiences. Because, without pictures and examples, it's so hard to get.
So you didn't have a whiteboard or anything?
Sorry?
You didn't have a whiteboard to draw on, or?
Sorry?
Did you have a whiteboard to draw on?
Oh yes, yesterday, I'm going to make because I have seen. I mentioned, for example, that cells are a bit tricky, more tricky than molecules, water molecules. Water molecules referring to the body. They're easier to treat than cells. And when you put the molecule into the cell and you call them atoms, then you lost your view because it's too late. In quantum physics, people have been asking, what is the reason why a glass stays a glass? There is no reason for it. When you look at the shape, there is no reason why things are why my silhouette is like this all the time. More older and older, of course, with this technology, is getting younger and younger. But the reason is consciousness. If you kind of buy your ticket into the material world, it's to measure things. Measure what's heavy and what's light, or soft and hard, and so on. That's the experience. But if you get the feeling that this is a insane matrix, and you realize that it's all an illusion, then the illusion has to be understood from the photons, from the light and the energy. Everything is energy. So it's kind of too late to call things atoms, because it's not going to help you if you cannot see the difference between molecules and cells. Cells is a bit too late as well. It has a charge in them, cells. It has one DNA deciding when you're going to die and how long time you're going to live. So dead cells literally look like shit. The procedure through the nanocoating in the stomach, when it's coming out, the reason why it's brownish is because it's a whole bunch of dead cells. And that explains and proves that whatever we eat, it's just 23-24% at the max that the body really keep.
That's right, yeah.
So what does the body keep? It's energy. Taking the energy from the nanocoating before the procedure of digestion. Sorry.
He was actually digesting his words right now.
Yeah.
But it would be fantastic to contribute with all kinds of questions.
Yeah, Craig Richardson here says, you're such an engaging speaker, Torbjorn. It's a real pleasure to listen to your understandings. We should have these open forums more often.
Thank you.
Why do you think I'm with him all the time?
Yeah.
No, it's a continuous flow. The thing is that 1 year ago, I was a loner with some few friends, and I was accusing my art, because I was thinking that if I'm supposed to be an artist, then the art is taking so much time that I can't be social. And that became a habit for many, many, many years, 40 years, And then Mr. Keshe came around, and I understood every word he said, and I didn't see the consequences of understanding what he said until later. Because when I had my first speech on plasma energy, it was 7 hours in a row. in front of 40 people, 43 people, I think.
43.
And that's when I realized I know more than I know. Because people were electric, asking all kinds of questions, and
In Norwegian.
And I kind of know things, I think, just by collecting what's in the air, because it began when I was about to make zinc GaNs. I think that the field from the GaNs were telling me to breathe differently when it comes to problems or challenges, and to see the difference actually between problems and challenges. If things becomes a challenge, you can be passionate about the resistance. But if you see it as problems, one has a tendency to give up. And when I started to breathe differently, I could see that I kind of bypassed myself during the breathing mechanism. And I mean to bypass that when I tried, it was just different breathing than ever before, not knowing exactly how it works, but I started to breathe differently, and then suddenly solutions was in the air. All kinds of solutions, like awakening, and they were physical. None of them were like a dream. There were physical solutions of things that I was wondering about. And I was giving myself a promise that if I can keep on breathing like that, rather than going back to the old way of breathing, where problems used to stay problems, I could start to see the consequences of understanding whatever kind of challenges I was into. And very often I use the breath if I don't know. And the breath will tell me that I do know. And so the old way to give up is non-existent. It doesn't exist. And it's a year ago when the problems went away. So now it's more ironic when I don't understand, because it's quite funny from time to time not to understand. Of course, depending on what kind of problem or challenge you have.
So then can we say there's some correlation between the atomization and when you breathe into the lung and how that interacts?
Yes, it's like oxygen and hydrogen, full of power and then completely naked and empty, neutral field. And you actually, it's like, okay, let's say that the vacuum is intelligent. That's not enough. What kind of intelligence is it? And it seems to me that since it's so colorful, you can actually start to control your challenges. That you can make a kind of a field, like an agreement. That, let's say that obviously you're much more into service to others than service to self. Then that's going to become a habit. That you're not doing much for yourself except for laughing, brushing your teeth, or having a bath, simple things that you will start to really appreciate. And when it comes to the products, you kind of enter a field where you have all kind of help. Like, for example, I was doing some very important nanocoating, and for me it was important. So I could see that there were what people would call orbs jumping into the tank. And now there were 6 or 7 light bulbs into the tank, and I was thinking, that's not a good traveling. That you better get out of there, because this is going to get very sour, you know. And then I got a message, kind of a telepathic message, that I didn't know what I was talking about, because this is so intelligent. It's got so much to give, that it's not the question of helping to nanocode. They can help much more on other levels, and that's only orbs. I get to see people. They look like people anyway. 3 or 4 of them studying me or studying what I'm doing. Most part what I'm doing, but they don't tell me much. But they give me energy, all kinds of energy, not necessarily positive or negative, but all kinds of energy, and messages, clear messages that I actually hear. So it's not. I doubt that it's God's voice, but it's
With intention.
yes. It's about love. It's about it's very solution oriented. Very far from giving up the tasks. It's about passion. It's about kindness, a particular kind of kindness, because people in general, if I use the word kindness, people would think that, oh, you're so kind. I know what kindness means. That's not the kindness I'm talking about. It's not the kindness I was mentioning about the sink either. This is an attitude. The kindness doesn't come alone, and it's hard to explain. But it's everything becomes gentle. You're part of the universe, and the universe is a part of you, and you feel that as kindness. You can be kind to yourself, because then you can be then you have that gift to share with the universe. That kind of kindness, and see what's in the fake emptiness, because there is no empty space. And the good way that Mr. Haraim Nassim is talking about, that there is no empty space. We should all have a particular experience to how it's full, what it's full of, the space, and try to see through the illusion, using your discernment and your kindness and understanding. And there, it seems to be no finish or defined beginning or end to it. So that's how you find out that you're part of something, and that's the same kind of kindness. Inclusive, Every time you choose kindness, it's for free, and suddenly you can treat all levels of kindness. You can recognize that it's all you, mirroring yourself.
Like we see in Mr. Keshe's body language, when he's pacing back and forth, trying to explain to us, and you can see all his body breathing that type of kindness. It's wonderful to observe, and we should be so grateful. And Jackie, and me.
Hello, everybody.
That's Carolina's voice.
That's Carolina's voice.
Good evening, everyone. from everywhere. Thank you for your nice words
Thank you.
and presentation.
Yeah, I think that's why I understand now how the carbon rod is actually able to produce more amino acid than it seems like my process with the nano-coated copper. It just produces a lot of amino acid on the top.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jordan,
Hello, Carolina.
hi. Please let them know to keep all the amino acids, because in a tiny little budget, tiny little amount,
Carolina, what are you saying? I don't hear.
Very hard to hear you, Caroline.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Better? Sorry.
much better.
There was something wrong on my phone. Don't forget, please, not to throw your amino acids away. Keep every single one of it. Wash them, keep them, treasure them, because in the near future, you will learn more about how to apply it, because let's say if you have the right mixture of amino acids, you can feed a whole city with it. That's how powerful amino acid is. But it's just an understanding which is about to come in the near future. How to apply it to make sure nobody has to go hungry again. Nobody needs to die of starvation. And keep it well. Don't throw them away, and harvest them very well. And I think I have to say thank you to your wonderful teaching today.
You don't mean me, Caroline, are you?
Excuse me?
You're talking to all of us, right?
Yes, of course, I do.
I don't see the difference in reality between a dialogue and a monologue, you know.
No, we don't. We always speak to everybody and to every person who's present in this event. And we are gonna go very fast forward. I have noticed they have started posting nice pictures on Facebook from the group. I've seen Sandy and her husband. I've seen other people. It would be nice if they could put their names as a tag with it, that people know who is who, because we know them from name and we know them from their pictures on Facebook or in Zoom, but we don't really know the face behind the name. It would be very nice if people could start coming forward with their picture, who they really are, that we talk to an individual instead of to just a picture or a flower or a child, if it is possible. So the pictures which are coming up now from the trip from all the way to arrive in Washington, it will be nice if you could identify who is who, if that is possible. If not, we respect the privacy. There's no problem. Mr. Kesh is going to come on now. And then,
Okay. Thank you, Caroline.
you're welcome. We're trying to get him in, Rick. Just give him a minute. You might have to accept him. If you see him coming, just let me know, Rick.